What is the best DPS weapon in Destiny? Turns out, it's this little old grenade launcher called Swarm of the Raven. At least when combined with certain buffs, this one legendary grenade launcher can out DPS weapons like Prospector, 1000 Voices, Sleeper Simulant, Outbreak Perfected, Mountaintop, Anarchy, Mountaintop plus Anarchy. Somehow, this little old grenade launcher from Iron Banner is the best DPS weapon in the game. Fellas, let's talk about it. First up, the rolls that I have on my grenade launcher. Now, neither one of these are god rolled, but they at least got the one trait we needed to test in order for us to actually sit down and calculate damage. First up, Swarm of the Raven is an aggressive frame, high damage, high recoil grenade launcher, meaning it's a 150 round per minute nade launcher. Now, the first roll that I got this week came with quick launch spike grenades, which is definitely the traits that you need on these grenade launchers to make them competitive, as it increases damage on direct hits. The first trait is threat detector, which is followed with rampage. Now, neither one of these traits are necessarily needed. Matter of fact, ideally, you would want field prep for that increase in ammo reserves, leaving that last column kind of open to whatever you want. Now, the second roll that I got came with hard launch, spike grenades, snapshots, and genesis. Now again, those final two traits, absolutely garbage. But two things that we got right on this roll. Number one, spike grenades, obviously. And number two, hard launch. Hard launch. Why is this the god roll in terms of launch barrels? Well, it actually decreases our blast radius by -5. And turns out, the less blast radius you have, the better your damage per second. So take, for instance, our 15 blast radius grenade launcher, which was the first roll that we showed. Its damage values was 3,856 plus 2,132, giving us a total damage value of 5,988. Now, the 12 blast radius was 3,809 plus 2,201, which I thought was really interesting, as the first value was less than the 15 blast radius first value, but the second damage value was more, actually giving us a total damage of 6,010. Now, this is not a drastic difference here. Realistically, it's only like a 0.4% difference. So it doesn't necessarily really matter whether or not you have hard launch or quick launch. What matters is that you do not choose a launch barrel perk that increases your blast radius, as that would decrease our damage per second. Now, speaking of DPS, why is Swarm of the Raven the best DPS weapon in the game? I recently had a chart shared with me over on Twitter, and there were some gentlemen that actually got together and collected damage for a single boss encounter, and these were their values. As you see right at the top is Swarm of the Raven. It has a boss spec applied, and its damage values are extremely impressive. Under it is actually Anarchy and Mountaintop. Matter of fact, when Season of Opulence dropped and the first raid lifted off, that was like the go-to setup for many members of my raid team, was Anarchy with Mountaintop. Placed a couple shots there of Anarchy and continued doing damage with Mountaintop. Under that is actually just a regular old 150 grenade launcher with spike grenades. And for the longest time, I was a huge fan of Outrageous Fortune, as it could roll with spike grenades, and it was a 150 round per minute grenade launcher. But what enables Swarm to pass up all of these other weapons is because the weapon is void. Being a void weapon and combining it with something like Tractor Cannon is why at the end here, where it shows all buffs plus Tractor, it has the highest damage values. Now again, Tractor Cannon has the exotic trait Repulsor Force, which causes targets to become more vulnerable to all incoming damage, but especially void, as that debuff goes from 33% to 50% for void weapons, which is why you see the damage there for Swarm of the Raven surpass that of Anarchy plus Mountaintop, Prospector, and many of the other high damage weapons. And even when we're calculating DPS on something like Greg, we're actually hitting somewhere around 15,000 damage per second, which is extremely impressive, guys. Like, there's a lot of weapons that can obviously beat it in terms of like burst damage, but in terms of sustained damage and simultaneously good damage per second, Swarm is nasty. Now, in terms of total damage, because that is brought up for certain encounters that do extend past what our ammo reserves would be here for Swarm, which I think with something like Field Prep plus 2 grenade launcher ammo reserves, I think it's like 22 shots. Most of our encounters are not going to require more than 22, but for those scenarios in which it does go past that, then yes, something like Mountaintop plus Anarchy is the best when it comes to like total sustained damage. considering that Anarchy just requires a couple shots and swapping to Mountaintop to do damage in between those Anarchy shots. Now, what we're speculating is spike grenades may receive a nerf in Shadowkeep. They're just so strong. I don't think Bungie expected 150 spike grenade launchers to beat all of these other exotic weapons. Now, I'm not against it. I like having powerful weapons, and if anything, I would hope spike grenades don't get nerfed. Instead, the other weapons get elevated if possible. But considering that Whispered has been dealt with in the way that it was dealt with, Mountaintop also being a Crucible Pinnacle weapon, being one of the best DPS weapons inside of PvE, and it's simply because of spike grenades, really makes me think that spike grenades, if not grenade launchers, are next on the chopping block, as my friend Jay would say. And it is possible, but at least for now, I would try to get a good roll on this grenade launcher, guys. Especially considering the drop rates for something like Anarchy. It is much easier to get at least a Swarm of the Raven with spike grenades than it is to get Anarchy. As bad as drop rates are for like 1k voices, or at least what it was previously before they buffed it, Anarchy to me is the worst. So at least before this season is over with, guys, collect some tokens from Iron Banner and turn them in. Now, from what I've been told, I believe it's better to not actually complete the Iron Banner quests and then turn in your tokens, as it limits the loot pool. I haven't confirmed that. At least from what I thought, you could still get armor pieces, it just won't have enhanced perks. So it's still going to be part of the loot pool. You're just going to get crappier armor when your RNG actually gives you armor. So again, haven't confirmed it, but if that is the case, hop on one of your other accounts that has not even completed the quest, the tokens transfer, and turn all your tokens in on that account. Well, good luck, boys. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.